Canto 7. The Redcrosse Knight is captive made by giant proud oppressed. Prince Arthur meets with Una great lie with those news distressed. I. What man so wise, what earthly wit so ware, as to descry the crafty cunning train, by which deceit doth mask in visor fair, and cast her colours dyed deep in grain, to seem like truth, whose shape she well can feign, and fitting gestures to her purpose frame, the guiltless man with guile to entertain. Great maestress of her art was that false dame, the false Dusa, cloaked with Fidice's name. 2. Who when returning from the dreary night, she found not in that perilous house of pride, where she had left the noble Redcrosse Knight, her hoped prey, she would no longer bide, but forth she went to seek him far and wide. Ere long she found, whereas he where he sate to rest himself, forby a fountain side, disarmed all of Errour-coated plate, and by his side his steed the grassy forage ate. 3. He feeds upon degrees the cooling shade, and bathes his sweaty forehead in the breathing wind, which through the trembling leaves full gently plays, wherein the cheerful birds of sundry kind do chaunt sweet music, to delight his mind. The which approaching gan him fairly greet, and with reproach of carelessness unkind upbraid, for leaving her in place unmeet, with foul words tempering fair, sour gall with honey sweet. 4. Unkindness past, they gan of solace treat, and bathe in pleasaunce of the joyous shade, which shielded them against the boiling heat, and with green boughs decking a gloomy glade, about the fountain like a girland made, whose bubbling wave did ever freshly well. Ne ever would through fervent summer fade, the sacred nymph which therein wont to dwell, was out of Dian's favour, as it then befell. 5. The cause was this. One day, when Phoebe degrees fair with all her band was following the chase, this nymph, quite tier 500 with heat of scorching air, sat down to rest in midst of the race. The goddess wroth gan foully her disgrace, and bade the waters, which from her did flow, be such as she herself was then in place. Thenceforth her waters waxed dull and slow, and all that drink thereof do faint and feeble grow. 6. Hereof this gentle knight unweeting was, and lying down upon the sandy grail, drunk of the stream, as clear as crystal glass. Eftsoons his manly forces gan to fail, and mighty strong was turned to feeble frail. His changed powers at first themselves not felt, till cruddled cold his courage gan assail, and cheerful blowed in faintness chill did melt, which like a fever fit through all his body swelt. 7. Yet goodly court he made still to his dame, poured degrees out in looseness on the grassy ground, both careless of his health, and of his fame till at the last he heard a dreadful sound, which through the wood loud bellowing did rebound, that all the earth for terror seemed to shake, and trees did tremble. Elf therewith astound, upstarted lightly from his looser make degrees, and his unready weapons gan in hand to take. 8. But ere he could his armor on him dight, or get his shield, his monstrous enemy with sturdy steps came stalking in his sight, and hideous giant, degrees horrible and high, that with his tallness seemed to threat the sky. The ground eke groaned under him for dread, his living like saw never living eye, ne durst behold. His stature did exceed the height of 3 the tallest sons of mortal seed. 9. The greatest earth his uncouth mother was, and blustering Aeolus his boasted sire, brought forth this monstrous mass of earthly slime puffed up with empty wind, and filled with sinful crime. 10. So grown great through arrogant delight of high descent, whereof he was yborn, and through presumption of his matchless might, all other powers and knighthood he did scorn. Such now he marcheth to this man forlorn, and left to loss. His stalking steps are stayed upon a snaggy oak, which he had torn out of his mother's bowels, and it made his mortal mace, wherewith his foeman he dismayed. 11. That when the knight he spied, he gan advance with huge force and insupportable main, and towards him with dreadful fury praunce, who hapless, and eke hopeless, all in vain did to him pace. Sad battle to daring disarmed, disgraced, and inwardly dismayed, and eke so faint in every joint and vein, through that frail fountain, which him feeble made, that scarcely could he wield his bootless single blade. 12. The jaunt strook so mainly merciless, that could have overthrown a stony tower, and were not heavenly grace that did him bless. He had been pudred all as thin as flower, but he was wary of that deadly stower, and lightly leapt from underneath the blow, Yet so exceeding was the villain's power, that with the wind it did him overthrow, and all his senses stound, that still he lay full low. 13. As when that devilish Errour engine degrees wrought in deepest hell, and frammed by Fury's skill, with windy nitre and quicksilver fraught, and rammed with bullet round, ordained to kill, conceiveth fire, the heavens it doth fill with thundering noise, and all the air doth choke, that none can breath, nor see, nor hear at will, through smouldry cloud of duskish stinking smoke, that onely breath degrees him daunts, who hath escaped the stroke. 14. So daunted when the Jones saw the knight, his heavy hand he heaved up on high, and him to dust thought to have batted quite, until Douce aloud to him gan cry, O great Orgoglio, greatest under sky, O hold thy mortal hand for lady's sake, hold for my sake, and do him not to die, degrees but vanquished than eternal bondslave make, and me, thy worthy meed, unto thy leman take. 15. He hearkened and did stay from further harms, to gain so goodly guerdon, as she spake. So willingly she came into his arms, who her as willingly to grace did take, and was possessed of his new-found make. Then up he took the slombred senseless course, and ere he could out of his swoon awake, him to his castle brought with hasty force, and in a donjon deep him threw without remorse. 16. From that day forth Douce was his dear, and highly honored in his haughty eye, he gave her gold and purple pall to wear and triple crowns set on her head full high, and her endowed with royal majesty. Then, for to make her dreaded more of men, and people's hearts with awful terror tie, a monstrous beast degrees hybrid in filthy fen he chose, which he had kept long time in darksome den. 17. Such one it was, as that renowned snake degrees which great Alcides in Stremona slew, long fosted in the filth of Lerna lake, whose many heads outbudding ever new did breed him and else labor to subdue. But this same monster much more ugly was, for 7 great heads out of his body grew, an Errour breast, and back of scaly brows, degrees and all imbrued and blowed, his eyes did shine as glass. 18. His tail was stretched out in wondrous length, that to the house of heavenly gods it wrought degrees and with extorted power, and borrow 500 strength. The ever-burning lamps from thence it brought, and proudly threw to ground, as things of naught, and underneath his filthy feet did tread the sacred things, and holy heasts foretaught. Degrees upon this dreadful beast with 7-fold head he set the false Douce, for more awe and dread. 19. The waffle dwarf which saw his maesters fall, whiles he had keeping of his grazing steed, and valiant knight become a caitiff thrall, when all was past, took up his forlorn weed degrees his mighty armor, missing most at need, his silver shield now idle maesterless, his poignant spear, that many made to bleed, the rueful monuments degrees of heaviness, and with them all departs to tell his great distress. 20. He had not travailed long, when on the way he waffle lady, waffle Una met, fast flying from that Paynham's greedy prey, whilst Satyrane him from pursuit did let, who when her eyes she on the dwarf had set, and saw the signs, that deadly tidings spake, she fell to ground for sorrowful regret, and lively breath her sad breast did forsake, yet might her piteous heart be seen to pant and quake. 21. The messenger of so unhappy news would fain have died. Dead was his heart within, yet outwardly some little comfort shows. At last recovering heart, he does begin to rub her temples, and to chafe her chin, and every tender part does toss and turn. So hardly degrees he the flitted life does win, unto her native prison to return, then gins her grieved ghost thus to lament and mourn. 22. Ye dreary instruments of doleful sight, that do this deadly spectacle behold, why do ye lend your feed on loathed light, or liking fine to gaze on earthly mould? Sith cruel fates the careful threads unfouled, the which my life and love together tied. Now let the stony dart of senseless cold purse to my heart, and paw through every side, and let eternal night so sad sight fro me hide. 23. O lightsome day, the lamp of highest Jove first made by him, men's wandering ways to guide, when darkeness he in deepest donjon drove, henceforth thy hated face for ever hide, and shut up heaven's windows shining wide. For earthly sight can naught but sorrow breed, and late repentance, which shall long abide. Mine eyes no more on vanity shall feed, but sealed up with death, degrees shall have their deadly meed. 24. Then down again she fell into the ground, but he her quickly reared up again. Thrice did she sink adown in deadly swound, and thrice he her revive 500 with busy pain. At last when life recover 500 had the reign, and over-wrestled his strong enemy, with faltering tongue, and trembling every vein tell on quoth she, the waffle tragedy, the which these reliques sad present unto mine eye. 25. Tempestuous fortune hath spent all her spite, and thrilling sorrow thrown his utmost dart, thy sad tongue cannot tell more heavy plight, than that I feel and harbor in mine heart, who hath endure 500 the whole, can bear each part. If death it be, it is not the first wound, that launched hath my breast with bleeding smart. Begin and end the bitter baleful stound, degrees if less than that I fear, degrees more favor I have found. 26. Then gan the dwarf the whole discourse declare, the subtle trains of Archimago old, the wanton loves of false Fidessa fair, bought with the blood of vanquished Paynim bold. The wretched payer transformed to treen mold, the house of pride, and perils round about the combat, which he with Sansjay did hood. The luckless conflict with the giant stout, wherein captive 500, of life or death he stood in doubt. 27. She heard with patience all unto the end, and strove to master sorrowful assay, degrees which greater grew, the more she did contend, and almost rent her tender heart in tway, and love fresh coals unto her fire did lay. For greater love, the greater is the loss. Was never Lady Degrees loved dearer day, then she did love the Knight of the Red Cross, for whose dear sake so many troubles her did toss. 28. At last when fervent sorrow slaked was, she up arose, resolving him to find alive or dead. And forward forth doth paw all as the dwarf the way to her ascend, and evermore, in constant careful mind, she fed her wound with fresh renewed bale, long tossed with storms, and bet with bitter wind, high over hills, and low adown the dales she wandered many a wood, and measured many a vale. 29. At last she chanced by good hap to meet a goodly knight, degrees fair marching by the way together with his squire, arrayed meet. His glitterand armor shined far away like glancing light of Phoebus' brightest ray. From top to toe no place appeared bare, that deadly dint of steel in danger may. Athwart his breast a baldric brave he wear, that shined, like twinkling stars, with stones most prettious rare. 30. And in the midst thereof one prettious stone of wondrous worth, and eke of wondrous mights, shapt like a lady's head, degrees exceeding shone, like Hesperus degrees amongst the lesser lights, and strove for to amaze the weaker sights. Thereby his mortal blade full comely hung in ivory sheath, Icarve 500 with curious sleights, whose hilts were burnished gold, and handle strong of mother pearl, and buckled with a golden tong. 31. His haughty helmet, horrid all with gold, both glorious brightness, and great terror bred, for all the crest a dragon degrees did enfold with greedy paws, and over all did spread his golden wings. His dreadful hideous head close couched on the bever, seem 500 to throw from flaming mouth bright sparkles fiery red, that sudden horror to faint hearts did show, and scaly tail was stretched adown his backy full low. 32. Upon the top of all his lofty crest, a bunch of hairs discolored diversely, with sprinkled pearl, and gold full richly dressed, did shake, and seemed to dance for jollity. Like to an almond tree immounted high on top of green Selena's degrees all alone, with blossoms brave bedecked daintily, whose tender locks do tremble every one at every little breath that under heaven is blown. 33. His warlike shield degrees all closely cover 500 was, ne might of mortal eye be ever seen, not made of steel, nor of enduring bras, such earthly metals soon consumed been, but all of diamond perfect pure and clean it framed was, one massy entire mold, hewn out of adamant rock with engines keen, that point of spear it never percend could, ne dint of direful sword divide the substance would. 34. The same to white he never wont disclose, but when as monsters huge he would dismay, or daunt unequal armies of his foes, or when the flying heavens he would affray. For so exceeding shone his glistering ray, that Phoebus' golden face it did attaint, as when a cloud his beams doth overlay, and silver Cynthia degrees waxed pale and faint, as when her face is stained with magic arts constraint. 35. No magic arts hereof had any might, nor blouty words of bold enchanters call, but all that was not such as seemed in sight, degrees before that shield did fade, and sudden fall, and, when him list degrees the rascal roots appall, men into stones therewith he could transmue, and stones to dust, and dust to naught at all. And when him list the prouder looks subdue, he would them gazing blind, or turn to other hue. 36. Ne let it seem, that credence this exceeds, for he that made the same, was known right well to have done much more admirable deeds. It Merlin degrees was, which whilome did excel all living wights in might of magic spell, both shield and sword, and armor all he wrought for this young prince, when first to arms he fell. But when he died, the Faerie Queene it brought to fairyland, where yet it may be seen, if sought. 37. A gentle youth his dearly loved squire, his spear of Heben wood behind him bear, whose harmful head, thrice heated in the fire, had riven many a breast with pikehead square, a goodly person, and could manage fare his stubborn steed with curbed cannon bit, who under him did trample degrees as the air, and chauffed that any on his back he should sit, the Eron rowels into frothy foam he bit. 38. When as this knight nigh to the lady drew, with lovely court he gan her entertain, but when he heard her answers loth, he knew some secret sorrow did her heart distrain, which to allay, and calmie her storming pain, fair feeling words he wisely gan display, and for her humour degrees fitting purpose fain to tempt the cause itself for to bewray, wherewith of 500, these bleeding words she gan to say. 39. What world's delight, or joy of living speech can heart, so plung 500 in sea of sorrows deep, and heaped with so huge misfortunes reach. The careful cold beginneth for to creep, and in my heart his Eron arrow steep. Soon as I think upon my bitter bale, such helpless harms it's better hidden keep than rip up grief, where it may not avail. My last left comfort is, my woes to weep and wail. 40. Ah, lady dear, quoth then the gentle knight, well may I ween your grief is wondrous great, for wondrous great grief groaneth in my sprite, whiles thus I hear you of your sorrows treat. But waffle lady, let me you entreat for to unfold the anguish of your heart. Mishaps are masted by advice discreet, and counsel mitigates the greatest smart. Found degrees never help who never would his hurts impart. 41. Oh, but quoth she, great grief will not be tood, degrees, and can more easily be thought than said. Right so, quoth he, but he that never would could never, will to might gives greatest aid. But grief, quoth she, does greater grow displayed, if then it find not help and breeds despair. Despair breeds not, quoth he, where faith is stayed. No faith degrees so fast, quoth she, but flesh does pair. Flesh may impair, quoth he, but reason can repair. 42. His goodly reason and well-guided speech so deep did settle in her gracious thought, that her persuaded to disclose the breach, which love and fortune in her heart had wrought, and said, Fair sir, I hope good hap hath brought you to inquire the secrets of my grief, or that your wisdom will direct my thought, or that your prowess can me yield relief. Then hear the story sad, which I shall tell you brief. 43. The forlorn maiden, whom your eyes have seen the laughing stock of fortune's mockeries, MTH, only daughter degrees of a king and queen, whose parents dear, whilst equal destinies degrees did run about, and their felicities the favorable heavens did not envy, did spread their rule through all the territories, which Phison degrees and Euphrates floweth by, and Jehon's golden waves do wash continually. 44. Till that their cruel cursed enemy, and huge great dragon horrible in sight, bred in the loathly lakes of Tartary, degrees with murderous ravine, and devouring might their kingdom spoiled, and country wasted quite, themselves, for fear into his jaws to fall, he forced to castle strong to take their flight, where fast embarred in mighty brace and wall, he has them now 4 years besieged to make them thrall. 45. Full many knights adventurous and stout have enterprise 500 that monster to subdue. From every coast that heaven walks about, degrees have thither come the noble martial crew, that famous hard achievement still pursue. Yet never any could that Gerland win, but all still shrunk, and still he greater grew, all they for want of faith or guilt of sin, the piteous prey of his fierce cruelty have been. 46. At last Iled with far reported praise, which flying fame throughout the world had spread of doughty knights, whom fairyland did raise, that noble order degrees height of maidend, forthwith to court of Glorian degrees I sped of Glorian great queen of glory bright, whose kingdom's seat Cleopolis degrees is red, there to obtain some such redoubted knight. The parents dear from tyrant's power deliver might. 47. It was my chance was fair and good, there for to find a fresh unproved knight, whose manly hands imbrue 500 in guilty blood had never been ne ever by his might had thrown to ground the unregarded right, yet of his prowess proof he since hath made. I witness am, in many a cruel fight, the groaning ghosts of many one dismayed have felt the bitter dint of his avenging blade. 48. And ye the forlorn relics of his power, his biting sword and his devouring spear, which have endured many a dreadful stour, can speak his prowess, that did erst you bear, and well could rule. Now he hath left you here to be the record of his rueful loss, and of my doleful disaventurous dear. Degrees, O heavy record of the good Redcrosse, where have you left your lord, that could so well you toss? 49. Well hoped I, and fair beginnings had, that he my captive languor degrees should redeem, till all unweeting, an enchanter bade his sense a bust, and made him to misdeem my loyalty, degrees not such as it did seem, that rather death desire than such despite. Bejudge ye heavens, that all things right esteem, how I him love 500, and love with all my might, so thought I eke of him, and think I thought aright. 50. Thenceforth me desolate he quite forsook, to wander, where wild a fortune would me lead, and other byways he himself betook, where never foot of living wight did tread, that brought degrees not backy the baleful body dead, in which him chanced false douce meet, mine onely foe, mine only deadly dread, who with her witchcraft and meseeming sweet, inveigled him to follow her desires unmeet. 51. At last by subtle sleights she him betrayed unto his foe, a giant huge and tall, who him disarmed, dissolute, dismayed, unware surprised, and with mighty maul the monster merciless him made to fall, whose fall did never foe before behold, and now in darksome dungeon, wretched thrall, remediless for ea he doth him hold. This is my cause of grief, more great than may be told. 52. Ere she had ended all, she gan to faint, but he her comforted and fair bespake. Certes, madame, ye have great cause of plaint. The stoutest heart, I ween, could cause to quake. But be of cheer, and comfort to you take, for till I have acquit your captive knight, assure yourself I will you not forsake. His cheerful words revive 500 her cheerless sprite. So forth they went, the dwarf them guiding ever right.